bench recently using faux box joints, so I wanted to see how easy it would be to actually cut some joinery and make some real box joints. I'm not good with my hand tools, so I knew I needed to use my power tools, and the pieces are too big and heavy to take to the table saw to make some sort of box joint jig at the table saw. So I thought that maybe I could create the box joints with my little palm router. Let's see if it works. Before doing any of this, I measured how big I wanted the box joints to be by measuring the width of my board and then dividing that number by 6, and that's how I figured out how wide I needed to cut these pieces over here. So I just cut 6 of these pieces, actually 7 over here. I cut one extra. I'm cutting these pieces to make a template, and it was really only through watching this back in the editing process that I realized what went wrong. I'm gluing end grain here, and we all know that end grain and glue do not mix well together. I actually had an original idea to rip the pieces through the table saw and do edge-to-edge glue up, and then for some reason at the last minute I decided to run the pieces through the miter saw, and that was a huge mistake. Alright, so the jig, template, whatever you want to call it, is all glued up. So initially I thought I was going to take another scrap and put it on the template like this, and then clamp it onto the board to route out those spaces to create the box joints. But now I'm going to eliminate this step, and I think I'm just going to clamp it onto the board like this and route it this way to create the box joint. So I don't know if it's gonna work, but let's see. So now I started marking up the boards for the joinery. I left a little bit of an overhang because you can always take away wood, you cannot add wood. I clamped the template in place and just marked where I'm going to make all the cuts. I also made sure to mark the template. And now everything's all marked up, so wish me luck. So I really do not like using a jigsaw, but I thought it was the most effective way to get rid of the bulk of the material here. If you like using a jigsaw, please let me know why down below and maybe give me some tips and pointers. I just really don't like using the thing. Anyway, so after clearing out most of the material, I put the template on the board using these armor tool clamps, and then I took my router with a pattern bit and just followed along with the template. But because I was using this little router, I had to be super careful about how much material I was taking off. I had to take very light passes so that it wouldn't catch on anything. And after I did the first layer, I could just take off the template and the bearing was riding along that first cut that I had made, the first layer that I made. Because the bit wasn't long enough to go through the whole board, I just needed to flip it over and put a flush cut trim bit into my router. I will always prefer to use a flush cut bit over a pattern bit because the bearing on the bottom just makes it feel so much more stable. Alright, so since I used the template on the top, it left some rounded corners, and now I have to get rid of those. I could use a chisel or a saw or something, but I'm going to try to do it with the router. I'm going to hold the router this way and try to get rid of them that way. Let's see. So this actually ended up working out really well, but it did not feel safe. So I would recommend using a bigger router that has more surface area so you feel more control, not this little trim router. Now that I got one board complete, I just had to do the exact same thing on another board. So I lined up the two pieces that were going to be joined together at least 40 times to make sure that I was going to be cutting the joints correctly. I just repeated the exact same process as I did before, and I just made sure to use the other side of the template. So that's how this template works. The gaps on one side of the template is the exact same width as the parts that are sticking out on the other side. So I had marked one top and one legs. So I just used the other side of the template, and then that way the joints will fit super snug into each other. Well, that's the goal at least. So using this armored table with these clamps was just so perfect for this application because the clamps clamped down the template and the board at the same time, and it felt so secure doing it that way. Besides for the safety concerns with using this little router, I could have totally used something with some major dust collection. All right, now for the moment of truth. I'm actually a little bit nervous to see if this is gonna work. So I was pretty amazed at how tight the joints actually were. I think maybe they were a bit too tight. I struggled a little bit getting them together. Maybe I'll shave it down before I assemble the full table. Okay, so I think I'm gonna call this one a success. The box joints are clean, they're tight. This is just a dry fit over here. And I think next time I would just do things a little bit differently. I would reinforce the template. It failed on me. I am going to show what happened in the full build video, hopefully soon. And I don't have a bigger router, so I had to use my trim router because I wanted it to be clean and precise. And I'm not good with hand tools. But if I had a bigger router, I would use a bigger router. The trim router is not made to do stuff like this, and it did not feel safe at times. I wouldn't suggest using a trim router. Maybe the whole time I kept thinking I should whip out my bigger base plate that has the handles. That would have maybe felt like I had some more control. It didn't feel like I had a lot of control, and it was a little bit scary. I gotta get myself a bigger router to do stuff like this. So those are the things I would do differently, and now I'm going to finish doing the rest of the table, and hopefully I'll get the full build video up soon. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, consider subscribing, check out my website, or watch another one. Oh man, it wasn't recording. Something's in my eye. Sawdust. Probably sawdust.